a sky full of dreams. Left, right, left, right. Tom called, trying to braid Lily's hair as she marched around their tiny living room. She giggled, her blonde pigtail bouncing against her back. Almost got it. Just need to secure the pony. He wrestled with the hair tie, finally managing a lopsided braid that was more bumps than smooth strands. Ta-da! World's best hairstyle, guaranteed. Lily spun, examining her reflection in the microwave door. It's wonky, Daddy. Wonky is the new stylish, Tom declared, winking. He scooped up her well-worn backpack, already overflowing with crayons, a sketchbook, and a stuffed otter named Pip. Everything in here? Gotta have your art supplies. Inspiration might strike at 30,000 feet. He hefted their single suitcase, a patchwork of duct tape holding it together. A pang of guilt struck him. He wished he could afford a new one, a matching set even, like the families they'd see at the airport. But this trip itself was already stretching their budget to its absolute limit. They rushed out the door, Tom double-checking the lock twice. The taxi was waiting, its meter ticking like a countdown to his next anxiety attack. Lily, oblivious to his inner turmoil, chattered about seeing clouds up close and maybe even spotting a shooting star. Her enthusiasm was infectious, a potent antidote to his worries. At the airport, Lily was a whirlwind of excitement. She pointed at everything, the blinking lights of the control tower, the baggage handlers wrestling with suitcases, and, of course, the airplanes. Look, Daddy, a big one. Is that ours? Tom consulted their boarding passes, a knot tightening in his stomach. Not that one, sweetie. Ours is a little smaller. They navigated the crowded terminal, Lily skipping ahead, her small hand securely in his. As they waited in line at security, Tom pulled out his phone, pretending to check emails. He surreptitiously opened his banking app. The numbers swam before his eyes. This trip was a gamble, no doubt about it. He'd been working extra shifts, skipping lunches, all to make it happen. He just hoped it was worth it. He hoped he could give Lily a memory she'd cherish, something to hold onto. Finally, they were through security and heading towards their gate. Lily stopped abruptly, gazing out the large window at the runway. An airplane roared past, its engine screaming as it lifted into the sky. Her eyes widened. It's like a sky full of dreams, Daddy, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Tom knelt beside her, wrapping his arm around her small shoulders. He looked at the plane, a silver bird soaring towards the horizon. For a moment, his worries faded. Maybe, just maybe, Lily was right. Maybe this trip wasn't just about escaping their everyday struggles. Maybe it was about chasing dreams, however fleeting they might be. He squeezed her hand. It is, sweetheart. It really is. Sparkly shoes and a grumpy face. The boarding line shuffled forward, a slow, patient beast inching its way toward the plane. Lily, clutching her stuffed giraffe, stretched on tiptoe, trying to peer over the heads in front of her. Dad, look, she exclaimed, tugging on Tom's sleeve. Sparkly shoes. Tom followed her gaze to a woman just ahead. She was tall, with a sleek gray suit and a kind face, but Lily was right, her shoes were dazzling. They were a deep, midnight blue, covered in what looked like tiny, twinkling stars. Very sparkly, Tom agreed, smiling down at his daughter. He wished he could buy her shoes like that. Or anything, really. They finally reached the gate agent, and after a scan of their boarding passes, they were shuffling down the jet bridge. The woman with the sparkly shoes turned left, disappearing into first class. Lily sighed wistfully. Maybe someday, she murmured. Tom squeezed her hand. Someday. He led her to their cramped seats in the back, the scent of stale coffee and recycled air already thick in the cabin. A few minutes later, Tom was helping Lily buckle her seatbelt when a commotion erupted near the front of the plane. A voice, sharp and laced with disdain, cut through the general hum of boarding. I'm sorry, madam, but there seems to be some mistake. This is the first-class section. Your ticket clearly states seat 37B. Tom craned his neck to see. The woman with the sparkly shoes was standing in the aisle, her face a mask of stunned disbelief. Blocking her path was a flight attendant, a man with a pinched face and a uniform that looked a size too small. His name tag read Reginald Periwinkle. He seemed to relish the discomfort radiating from the woman. But, I have a first-class ticket, the woman protested, her voice barely audible above the growing murmur of the other passengers. She held up her boarding pass, but Reginald waved it away dismissively. I assure you, there has been an error. Perhaps you should double-check your belongings. I'll have to ask you to move to your assigned seat. He gestured towards the back of the plane with a flourish that bordered on theatrical. Tom felt a surge of anger. The woman looked mortified, her cheeks flushed. Even from this distance, he could see the tremor in her hands as she clutched her purse. This wasn't right. The way Reginald spoke to her was unforgivable. Reginald, oblivious to the stares of the passengers, continued his tirade. I cannot allow disruptions of this nature. Now, if you please, he reached out, his fingers brushing her arm as if to physically guide her away. Lily gasped, clutching Tom's hand tighter. Dad, he's being mean. Tom, his jaw tight, watched as the woman, shoulders slumped, slowly turned and began to walk towards the back of the plane, the sparkle of her shoes seeming to dim with each step. He wanted to say something, to do something, but the words caught in his throat. He was just Tom Baker, single dad, trying to make a living. What could he possibly do? Standing up for what's right. Tom swallowed, the lump in his throat feeling like a granite boulder. Reginald's dismissive wave still hung in the air, the echo of his snide remark ringing in Tom's ears. Stella, despite the thinly veiled insult, remained composed, her chin held high. But Tom couldn't shake the feeling of injustice that churned in his gut. He shifted uncomfortably, the worn fabric of his trousers scratching against his skin. Lily, sensing his unease, gave his hand a small, reassuring squeeze. He met her gaze, her bright eyes reflecting a mixture of concern and pride. That look was all the encouragement he needed. "Excuse me, sir," Tom said, his voice wavering slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again, projecting his voice a little louder. "Excuse me, Mr. Periwinkle, was it? I don't think that was very fair." Reginald turned, his face a mask of incredulous disdain. "Fair? Are you questioning me, my good man? I made an observation. A perfectly valid one, I might add. This woman clearly doesn't belong in first class." He gestured vaguely towards Stella with a dismissive flick of his wrist. Tom's cheeks flushed. He hadn't expected such an immediate and arrogant reaction. He wasn't used to confrontation, especially not with someone so pompous. But he pressed on, fueled by a stubborn sense of right and wrong. "With all due respect, sir, I don't think it's your place to decide who belongs where. Miss Ainsworth paid for her ticket just like everyone else, and she's been nothing but polite since boarding." Reginald sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. "Polite? That's hardly the point. This is about maintaining standards, about preserving a certain decorum." He puffed out his chest, his voice rising in volume. Other passengers began to glance their way, their conversations fading as they tuned into the escalating argument. "Decorum?" Tom scoffed, surprised by the edge in his own voice. "There's nothing decorous about being rude and condescending to someone for no good reason." "Are you calling me rude?" Reginald roared, his eyes bulging. He jabbed a finger towards Tom. "I'll have you know—" "Yes," Tom interrupted, the word hanging in the air like a challenge. He felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him, overriding his usual timidity. He glanced at Stella, who was watching the exchange with a curious, almost amused expression. He hoped he wasn't making things worse for her. He risked another quick peek at Lily, her eyes sparkled, her small hands still firmly clasped in his. Reginald was apoplectic, sputtering unintelligible phrases. Several passengers were openly staring now, their expressions ranging from shock to morbid curiosity. The air in the cabin crackled with tension, thick and palpable. The gentle hum of the airplane engines seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the heavy silence that had descended upon the first-class section. Tom knew somehow that this moment would change everything. A shiny button and a quiet thank you. The last echoes of Reginald's sputtered indignation faded, leaving a tense silence in their wake. Stella's gaze, sharp as honed steel moments before, softened as she turned to Tom. "Thank you, Mr. Baker, was it?" Tom, still feeling the adrenaline thrumming in his veins, nodded, his cheeks flushed. "Tom. Just Tom is fine." She extended her hand, a small, perfectly manicured hand that seemed incongruous with the calluses he noticed on her palm. "Stella Ainsworth." Her grip was firm, surprisingly strong. From her jacket pocket, she produced something small and round, pressing it into his palm. It was a button. Not just any button, but one crafted from a shimmering, iridescent material that caught the light. Mother of pearl, perhaps? Or something rarer. It was small, no bigger than his thumbnail, and exquisitely detailed, etched with a delicate floral pattern. "A small token," she said, her voice quiet now, almost intimate. "For your chivalry. And for standing up for what's right." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "And for dealing with Mr. Periwinkle. Believe me, I know how trying he can be." Tom stared at the button, its colors shifting and swirling in the cabin light. I don't know what to say." A quiet thank you is quite sufficient, Mr. Baker, she replied, her eyes twinkling. Now, I believe you have a daughter waiting for you. He closed his fingers around the button, its smooth coolness a strange comfort in his sweaty palm. Yes. Yes, I do. He managed a weak smile. Thank you, Miss Ainsworth. He turned, Lily already craning her neck, her eyes wide with concern. He steered her gently towards the back of the plane, the aisle feeling narrower, more crowded than before. He could feel Reginald's glare boring into his back as they passed. The man's face was a mottled shade of purple, his lips pressed into a thin, angry line. They finally found their seats near the wing. Lily settled in next to the window, her usual enthusiasm subdued. Are you okay, Dad? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He squeezed her hand. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired. He didn't want to tell her about the button, not yet. He wanted to examine it in private, to understand why this woman, this Stella Ainsworth, had given him such an unusual gift. He buckled his seatbelt, the metallic click a sharp punctuation mark to the strange encounter. As the plane began to taxi towards the runway, he glanced back towards the front of the plane. Stella Ainsworth was already engrossed in a thick file, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looked every inch the powerful businesswoman, miles away from the vulnerable woman he had defended just minutes before. The button was still clutched tightly in his hand, a tiny, shimmering secret. Whispers and wonder. The hum of the jet engines settled into a dull roar, a white noise that both calmed and amplified Tom's anxieties. He glanced at Lily, who was engrossed in a travel-sized coloring book, her tongue peeking out from the corner of her mouth as she meticulously filled in a mermaid's tail with shades of turquoise and emerald. A movement caught his eye. A flight attendant, a woman with a severe bun and an even more severe expression, was approaching Miss Stella. Tom expected the usual offer of peanuts or pretzels, but instead, the flight attendant bent low, her voice a hushed whisper. Miss Ainsworth, would you care for the usual? A chilled glass of Chateau Margaux, 82. Tom's eyebrows shot up. Chateau Margaux? 82? That sounded expensive. He stole another glance at Miss Stella. She was looking out the window, the morning sunlight catching the sharp angles of her face. She seemed unfazed by the offer. Thank you, Patricia, she replied, her voice low and smooth. That would be lovely. Patricia, the severe flight attendant, actually smiled. It was a brief, almost unsettling transformation. She retreated with an efficiency that bordered on reverence. Tom nudged Lily gently. Did you hear that, sweetie? He whispered. Lily looked up, her brow furrowed. Hear what, Dad? That lady wants juice. Not exactly juice, Tom chuckled nervously, something a little fancier. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. People in first class got perks, sure, but this felt different. It felt deferential. A few minutes later, Patricia returned with a delicate glass filled with a deep, ruby liquid. She presented it to Miss Stella with both hands, like offering a sacred relic. Please, Miss Ainsworth, let me know if there is anything else I can do to make your flight more comfortable. Tom and Lily exchanged a bewildered glance. Lily's eyes were wide with curiosity. Dad, why is she being so nice to her? She mouthed silently. Tom shrugged, equally perplexed. I don't know, sweetie. Maybe she's just a really good tipper. But he didn't believe it. He'd seen plenty of generous passengers, but he'd never witnessed this level of respect. It was more than respect, it bordered on awe. As if sensing their scrutiny, Miss Stella turned her head. She caught Tom's eye, and a warm, genuine smile spread across her face, softening her features. She winked, then raised her glass slightly in a silent toast. Tom, flustered, managed a weak smile in return. Lily, however, beamed, clearly charmed. The mystery only deepened. A fancy car and a big mystery. The sliding doors of the terminal hissed open, releasing a wave of travelers into the bustling arrival hall. Tom craned his neck, trying to keep Stella in sight. Lily, ever observant, tugged on his sleeve. There, Dad? Lily pointed towards a man in a perfectly tailored black suit holding a sign. In elegant script it read, Ms. Ainsworth. The man stood ramrod straight, a picture of quiet efficiency. Stella spotted him too. A small smile played on her lips as she turned back to Tom and Lily. Well, this is me. Thank you both again. Truly. For everything. She extended a hand to Tom, her grip firm and surprisingly warm. Then she knelt down, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. And you, Lily, you have a very kind heart. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Tom, flustered, managed a weak, You're welcome, Miss Ainsworth. We were happy to help. Stella winked, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Just Stella, please. With a final wave, she turned and walked towards the chauffeur. He snapped to attention as she approached, relieving her of the small carry-on bag she had. Tom and Lily watched, dumbfounded, as the chauffeur led Stella to a limousine that seemed to stretch on forever. It was a sleek, obsidian beast, its tinted windows reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights of the terminal. The chauffeur opened the back door with a flourish and Stella gracefully slid inside. The door closed with a soft, muffled thud. The limousine purred to life and glided silently away from the curb, disappearing into the stream of traffic. They stood there for a moment, the lingering scent of expensive perfume hanging in the air. Wow, Lily breathed, her eyes wide. That was something. Tom just shook his head, a bemused expression on his face. Tell me about it. He glanced down at his worn work boots, then back in the direction the limousine had vanished. The contrast was almost comical. The bus ride home was quiet. The rumble of the engine and the blur of city lights outside the window provided a backdrop to their thoughts. Lily, usually chatty, was unusually subdued. Dad, she finally asked, breaking the silence. Do you think she's, like, really important? Tom sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. I don't know, Lilybug. Maybe. That car, that was something else. More money than we'll probably ever see. He paused, thinking. But she seemed nice. And grateful. Yeah, Lily agreed. But it's weird, right? All of it. First class, the shouting lady, and then that car. She shivered slightly. It feels like we stepped into a movie or something. Tom pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Maybe we did, Lilybug. Maybe we did. He looked out the window, the city lights reflecting in his weary eyes. A fancy car and a big mystery. He couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had just taken a very unexpected turn. An unexpected invitation. The shrill ring of the phone shattered the afternoon stillness. Tom, sprawled on the couch, wrestled with lukewarm coffee and Lily's impenetrable math assignment. Another unsolicited call, no doubt. He almost let it go to voicemail, but Lily's hopeful face stopped him. Maybe it's something good, Dad, she piped, brandishing her eraser like a tiny scepter. He sighed, relenting. Hello? A polished, professional voice answered, Good afternoon, Mr. Baker. Stella Ainsworth here. Tom nearly choked on his tepid brew. Stella Ainsworth? The very same he'd assisted on the flight? Speech deserted him, his thoughts a chaotic scramble of surprise. Miss Ainsworth? Well, this is a surprise. A melodic chuckle traveled across the line. I trust a pleasant one? I wanted to personally express my gratitude for your, shall we say, gallantry on the trip. I was wondering if you and Lily might consider visiting the airline's main offices sometime next week? I'd be delighted to give you a tour. He could scarcely believe his ears. The airline's nerve center? He glanced at Lily, practically vibrating with anticipation. Headquarters? We wouldn't want to intrude. Nonsense, Mr. Baker. Consider it a small repayment for your kindness. Perhaps you'd both find it interesting to witness the inner workings of a major airline? I suspect Lily might be particularly captivated. Lily, catching her name, snatched the phone. Are there real planes? Can we see the pilots? Can we see inside the cockpit? She rattled off, her voice brimming with youthful exuberance. Gently reclaiming the receiver, a smile played on Tom's lips. Miss Ainsworth, please forgive my daughter's enthusiasm. She's quite excited by the prospect. Precisely my hope, Stella replied, a touch of amusement coloring her tone. How does Tuesday afternoon sound? We can, of course, arrange transportation. Tom hesitated. This was unfolding with dizzying speed, but Lily's expectant gaze was an irresistible force. Tuesday sounds lovely. Thank you, Ms. Ainsworth. We'd be thrilled. Excellent. My assistant will be in touch with the details. I eagerly anticipate your visit. The connection severed. Tom slowly lowered the phone, gazing at it as if it held the key to a grand enigma. Lily was a whirlwind of bottled energy. Dad, did she really say airplanes? And pilots? And headquarters? What even is headquarters? He ruffled her hair, trying to anchor himself in reality. It's where the top people work, pumpkin. Where they call all the shots for the airline. Lily's eyes widened to the size of saucers. So, it's like a palace for airplanes? Tom laughed, pulling her into a tight embrace. Something like that. But we need to mind our manners. Miss Ainsworth is doing us a tremendous favor. Even as the words left his mouth, a subtle disquiet settled within him. Why would the head of a major airline take such an intense interest in them? The situation felt unusual. Thrilling, yes, but undeniably peculiar. The truth takes flight. The glass doors of Ainsworth Air headquarters whooshed open, swallowing Tom and Lily into a world of polished chrome and hushed reverence. Lily's jaw dropped. A spiraling staircase, seemingly made of light, climbed several stories. Water trickled down a wall of verdant moss, the air smelling faintly of petrichor and something expensive Tom couldn't quite place. He felt a pang of guilt for dragging Lily into what felt increasingly like a fool's errand, but her wide-eyed wonder momentarily eclipsed his anxiety. "Wow, Dad," she breathed, clutching his hand a little tighter. "It's like a palace." Reginald Periwinkle, looking even more pinched and disapproving than before, led them through a maze of corridors. The silence was broken only by the click of his polished shoes and the rustle of Lily's coat. Finally, he stopped before a set of double doors made of dark wood, inlaid with mother-of-pearl. He rapped sharply and, without waiting for a response, ushered them inside. The office was vast, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Behind a large, minimalist desk sat Miss Stella, but she was different. The harried, almost fragile woman from the plane was gone. This Stella radiated power. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her tailored suit impeccable, and her eyes held a sharp, assessing glint. "Mr. Baker, Lily, please, have a seat," she said, gesturing to two plush chairs. Her voice, amplified by the room, sounded deeper, more resonant. Tom swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. He and Lily sat, perching on the edge of the seats. "I believe introductions are in order," Stella continued, a small smile playing on her lips. "My name is Stella Ainsworth, and, as you may have guessed, I own Ainsworth Air." Tom felt the blood drain from his face. He glanced at Lily, who looked equally stunned. Stella chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that eased some of the tension in the room. "Mr. Periwinkle here," she nodded towards Reginald, who remained stiffly by the door, "is my head of human resources. He was instrumental in the little test we conducted on Flight 47. "Test?" Tom croaked. "Yes," Stella said, leaning forward. "I needed to evaluate the integrity of my staff, to see who would stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult." Mr. Periwinkle was instructed to create a disruptive scenario. She shot Reginald a pointed look. "And you, Mr. Baker, you passed with flying colors. Your kindness, your bravery, and your willingness to defend a stranger, especially when you believed you were risking your job, impressed me immensely." She paused, her gaze softening as she looked at Lily. "And your daughter, Lily, she showed remarkable compassion and understanding. You've raised a wonderful young lady, Mr. Baker." Tom felt a warmth spread through his chest. He hadn't been a fool. He had done the right thing. "Mr. Baker," Stella continued, "I would like to offer you a position with Ainsworth Air, Head of Customer Relations. It's a significant step up from your current role with a commensurate salary and benefits package. You would be responsible for ensuring that every passenger experiences the same level of respect and consideration you showed me on that flight. What do you say?" Tom stared at her, speechless. He glanced at Lily, her eyes shining with hope. He thought of the leaky roof, the overdue bills, Lily's worn-out shoes. He began, then took a deep breath. "I accept. A new beginning. I accept," Tom blurted out, the words tumbling over themselves in his eagerness. Relief washed over him, so potent it made his knees wobble. "I accept the position, Ms. Ainsworth. Thank you. Thank you so much." Stella's smile widened, a genuine expression that reached her eyes. "Excellent, Mr. Baker. Welcome aboard. Or, should I say, welcome to the skies." She gestured towards the plush leather chairs in her office. "Let's discuss the details." The details turned out to be a generous salary, comprehensive benefits, and a schedule that allowed him ample time with Lily. As he listened, Tom felt a weight lifting from his shoulders, a weight he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying for so long. Later that afternoon, Tom found Reginald Periwinkle packing his desk. His face was a mask of forced cheerfulness, though his eyes betrayed his simmering resentment. "Just tidying up, Baker?" he chirped, carefully placing a framed photo of himself golfing into a box. "Ms. Ainsworth felt my talents would be better utilized in interdepartmental mail delivery." He cleared his throat, the sound tight and strained. "A fresh perspective, you see." Tom simply nodded, offering a polite but non-committal response. He wasn't one to gloat, but a small part of him felt a quiet satisfaction. That evening, Tom surprised Lily with the news. Her eyes widened, reflecting the city lights streaming through their tiny apartment window. "Really, Dad? You got the job." He scooped her up in a hug, twirling her around. "I did, kiddo. And guess what? Miss Ainsworth, you know, the lady from the plane? She invited us on a trip. All expenses paid." Lily gasped. Where are we going? The next morning, a sleek black car whisked them away from their familiar, cramped surroundings. At the airport, Stella greeted them with a warm embrace. Ready for an adventure? She asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Their destination, a private island in the Caribbean, a jewel of white sand beaches and turquoise waters. The flight itself was an experience. No cramped seats or stale pretzels this time. Instead, they lounged in spacious comfort, sipping freshly squeezed juice and gazing out at the endless expanse of blue. As the plane descended, Lily pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Below, the island shimmered like a mirage. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and the ocean sparkled under the tropical sun. Stepping off the plane, Lily gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like paradise, Dad." Tom smiled, his heart swelling with happiness. He looked at Stella, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he murmured. "For everything." Stella simply winked. "The pleasure is all mine, Tom. Welcome to a new beginning."